Hello everyone and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Sean and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I'm Tennille.
And I'm Sean, and today we are taking a look at Phoenix 2772, which is a movie made by Toho and Tezuka Productions of Japan.
Yes, because this is an adaptation of one of Osamu Tezuka's mangas.
Specifically, the one called Phoenix.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, honestly, I don't know. It's a 2-hour space opera with a lot of generic themes that you see in a lot of different space operas.
It's
at
very
the time,
sci-fi.
If I'm being honest.
It's very sci-fi in a very Osamu Tezuka way, you know?
Oh, yeah, it's still got his fingerprints all over it, which makes sense because he helped co-write the thing. Yeah.
So this one isn't directed by him, but he did write the screenplay, which makes sense. And I kind of want to go into the manga later.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to the structure of that. But first, why don't we go over the summary of this movie? A lot happens in this movie, but let's try to make it brief.
Yeah, I'll try my best.
Yeah.
All right, so the movie starts with us watching a test tube baby grow up in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
He's all by himself. He has robots to take care of him. Eventually, once he gets to like toddler age or slightly past that, he is given a robot woman who can transform into a
various
basket and
vehicles.
vehicle things. And he has a remote that just controls her. And she becomes his surrogate mom until he becomes...
/ best friend.
Until he becomes an adult. Cool. We'll come back to that.
All I gotta say about that is that Osamu Tezuka has never been subtle with his kinks.
All right. Once he becomes an adult, he is forced into the role of a space pilot because this is a society where you're just chosen for a role depending on what it deems you are capable of doing. And that's what you're stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
So he's stuck as a space pilot. And it turns out he's like the best of the best. He can shoot anything. He's really good at all of the stuff. But his only problem is he won't kill living creatures. Which... Okay. Yeah,
all right.
I mean, yeah.
He's got a moral backbone.
He's got a moral backbone and he's not an asshole. I get it.
He's also super attached to
his
robot friend.
We should just call her Olga because that's her name. Her name is Olga.
And this is also something that's like, why do you care about robots? Robots don't have feelings. And I'm like, why wouldn't everybody care about their robot if they're literally being like test tube brought up and this is like your only friend?
Mm-hmm.
Humans have to form attachments to something.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it to quote unquote inanimate objects because like I say quote unquote inanimate objects
because it's a robot. So of course it's a
robot that looks like a human. So like of course she later is like, I have discovered what feelings are.
Beep boop bop.
Beep boop bop.
Anyways, the main character, his mission is he has to go out and capture the Phoenix 2772. Or 2772.
Is the Phoenix called that?
Yes.
I thought that was just like the year.
No.
This takes place.
Or they're calling it 272 or something. Like, it feels like they're leaving out one of the sevens in the name of the thing. But they keep referring to it as like 272 throughout the course of the movie. That's his job. He has to go out and capture it, but he has to do it by himself. He's not allowed to take the robot lady with him. And he's
For reasons.
And he's going to have to do it in like a year. He's still testing. In the meantime, he happens to come across the daughter of the leader of human society. So she is in the upper echelons. She is top tier class. No one can step to her. And
elite.
Yes, as a lowly pilot, he's not allowed to fraternize with her. Mm-hmm. Well, they form a thing and they kiss and they smooch and then they get caught by the police. And he is, well, it doesn't end up well for him because his clone brother or another test tube baby who turns out to be a smart guy, so he's in the top tier, is supposed to marry that girl, and he's also the guy that's telling him all of his jobs. And he keeps referring to the main character as his brother because they're both test tube babies.
Right.
Even though it's not actually established whether they have the same genetic DNA backup or whatever.
Well, I mean, I'm just more so curious, like, is everybody in this universe a test tube baby? Are only, like, the non-elites members of society test tube babies? That seems to be kind of implied.
That's kind of what's implied, because throughout the course of the movie, you find out that only elites are allowed to have actual marriages and presumably have their actual own babies because they're the best, and Earth is falling to pieces, so they're not going to allow that kind of thing for random people who are just test tube babies then?
Which also makes me, and you can correct me if something in the film disproves this, which also makes me feel like all the test tube babies are male.
They could be.
Because, okay, like, I'm just trying to get a grasp on the world building here. I feel like, you know, you have your elites who essentially go through human reproduction the normal way. And then you have, like, the rest of society who are all test tube babies that they all make male so that they cannot reproduce with other humans in order to, like, control that population.
I feel like it's not inherently that way. I feel like there are people in the world as a whole that are reproducing in the regular way, but they're not allowed to and stuff, because later down the line we see some people more down on their luck where there are men, women, and children.
Right, that's right. There are men, women, and children.
So
okay.
It feels like that's the general rule in high society, and there's a vast majority of people that are test tube grown, but not fully.
Yeah, and obviously this all takes place in a very, like, dystopian society.
Obviously everything going on is bad.
Right, yeah.
And stuff. Anyways, so Clone Brother is actually set up to marry the girl, and at this point Olga is super heckin' jealous. Because of course she is.
Yeah.
She's a female robot character written in the 80s. The 80s now. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we're in the 80s.
I know, it's going to take a little while to get used to.
Anyways, he is no longer a pilot because he tried to run away with someone's top tier girl. So he is sent to a labor camp. And this is when you actually see outside of basic society, there's no plants, there's nothing. Earth is like
super dead and dying.
Everything has been destroyed by humanity. Their last-ditch effort to continue to have energy to run the planet is to...
They're trying to harvest energy from the mantle.
Yeah, the mantle of the planet. So, like, it's super dangerous work. People are constantly dying.
There's earthquakes all the time, which just further... F's things up because, like, it destroys the power plants and all that.
It's real bad. The main character here meets an old doctor man who looks like any other old doctor man from an Osamu Tezuka production. Because he looks like the same guy that made the robot boy, Astro Boy.
Yeah.
He looks like the same old man.
Dr. Light.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Light from Mega Man that whole thing is obviously based on Astro Boy. And
I know. That's why I made a funny.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining my joke.
Yes. Anyways. They escape the planet in a spaceship. They're going to go out into space and find the Firebird. The reason that the Firebird is important is because it is thought to be... It's a phoenix, so it will constantly die and come back to life, and they can harvest its constant energy to save the planet.
Yes, that's the thought.
The reason they want it.
The doctor wants it because he wants to drink the phoenix's blood because that'll also grant you immortality.
No, he doesn't. The leader of the elites wants it for that reason. The doctor wants it to study it and give it to everyone.
Right.
He wants to do good things with it.
Like, they all kind of want the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. They all want it for themselves for particular reasons, and some of them are pretending it's for better humanity, society reasons.
Right. Like, as a whole, I would say that, you know, they're like, we want to get this phoenix so that we can save Earth and save our hides. Like, that's kind of the general goal.
I guess
anyway.
One character I haven't mentioned is the girl that he was fraternizing with to begin with has an alien who is her pet, slave, servant,
handmaiden.
They don't really go into the specifics of why she's there, but she's very clearly serving the
elite girl.
The elite girl. She and Olga, I don't know, they come along too. They get over there. They make it to the space camp. They save him before he dies from one of the accidents. They all go to space.
Mm-hmm.
Out in space, they meet another random human who's decided to leave Earth because Earth really sucks. And he's living with a bunch of other random aliens who are all weird, absurd Osamu Tezuka designs.
Yep.
They pick up 2 more aliens who supposedly know more information about where the Firebird can be found.
They mostly just scream at each other and sing songs, and it's really annoying.
The 3 alien characters are only here as like comic relief and, like you said, sing songs, and just they fill time.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually,
I was okay with the like broom one because like she had something going on, but the other 2 are complete filler.
Yeah, they do nothing. It's a bagpipe hole monster and a dice.
Yeah.
And the joke is you don't know what's inside the dice. It just has anything at once, essentially.
And she gets knocked around, so then it's like rolling a dice, kind of.
Things like that. From this point forward, we can kind of speed up a little bit, because once they get into space, nothing important happens for a long time.
Yeah.
They just kind of wander around, and hijinks with these aliens happen. Eventually, they go to the planet where the Firebird is. They find the Firebird. It burns the doctor because they try to capture it and fights back. It turns out the Firebird is like a goo monster that can transform into anything at once, most often the form of a giant flying bird, but it can be literally anything at once.
Also like a giant Firebird lady.
Yeah, when they first see it, it's got like a female body with wings and like no head.
Yeah.
It was weird. And again, we can see Osamu Tezuka's kinks immediately.
Just plain as day.
So they go into space, they chase it around, they fight it a lot. All 3 alien characters get eaten. The old man explodinates as the ship is getting damaged in the fight.
And he's dead.
He's just straight dead. And he was like, its weakness is bleh. And then he dies right before he could divulge what the secret weakness of the Firebird is, because it supposedly only has one. Olga gets thrown into space and she fights it for a while, and then she gets destroyed. I would say die. I don't know. By this point, she is definitely
expressed her love.
Confessed her love to man, and he's like, oh, okay.
Well, okay, there's like this whole scene where he's like, we gotta establish just how much of a putz our protagonist is here. He's fraternizing with like elite lady, and then they go off and they fly away in the ship, and then broom monster alien thing is like, oh well, she got married to your test tube brother, and he's like, no, how could she? She betrayed me. And it's like, dude, she lives in a society.
She's not really allowed to say no here.
Right. And he's like, oh, no. And so, like, he goes off and he has a whole, like, cry about it. And then Olga comes and she's like, well, I love you. And, you know, I don't know what to do with these feelings because I'm a robot and this sucks and blah. And then he's like, I don't care because you're not a real woman.
I need a real woman.
Yeah.
Oh, that was kind of mean. I'm sorry.
Well, he says that like way later.
Well, like, he says it in the same conversation, but like at the end as he's walking away.
Yeah, he's like, you can't understand how I feel because I'm real, and I also need a real woman. I'm just like,
dumbass.
This is so many layers of just like,
Oof.
she's your mom, but also she's a robot, but also like
She's your
you're
best
being
friend.
a dick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So she dies. All the aliens are eaten. Only the guy is left on the spaceship, and he's like, well, I can't beat this Firebird. It's gonna kill me, but I'll at least try to fix my robot girlfriend because now that she's dead, I realize I also love her.
Oh, I should have realized that I was in love with you this whole time, Olga. Oh,
It's like, no, duh. No shit.
No shit, this is where this was going.
So the Firebird tries to attack, but it just can't touch the ship because its weakness is love. True love, but only expressed by a man, I guess, because Olga was in love this whole time, but that never stopped it.
Yeah.
The Firebird teleports into the ship as like a small peacock phoenix thing, and it's like, I can help you out. I can give you what you want. And
I can grant you your heart's desire. Whatever.
Because I just want to share it. And he's like, I don't know what you mean, but okay. And so the Firebird comes over and takes the place of Olga, like possesses her body and pretends to be Olga. And the main character is such an idiot, he doesn't realize that's what's going on.
I see it as more of like a shared body situation. So I think Olga is brought back to life. Like, that is Olga in there. But she's only being brought back to life because the Phoenix is also in there.
Okay.
Because, like, the Phoenix's whole thing is reincarnation. So, like, I think that is Olga. It's just also the Phoenix girl.
Yeah, because she now has all the information that the Phoenix knows and stuff.
Yeah.
And so the Phoenix, Olga, is like, oh, so let me tell you about all the cool things the Phoenix actually does, because you don't want to capture it, because look, this planet over here died, but the Phoenix has brought it back to life. It can reincarnate even planets. And look, those 3 aliens that were eaten, they're here now. I regurgitated them. I reincarnated them.
Yeah, they're fine.
I as the Phoenix, take life to give life.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's also just kind of talking about, like, a cycle of life, too. Because it talks about, like, a planet that's dead, and then, like, the soul of the planet has left. And they're like, but things don't ever really truly die. And then, like, it talks about how, like, you know, millions of years from now, like, this planet will be alive again and have new life and blah, 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 blah.
So they're living on this planet peacefully, man and robot lady Phoenix. And then man's like, I gotta go back to Earth and save Earth. We can do it. We'll take a bunch of vegetables.
We're gonna Wall-E this.
We're gonna take the vegetables back to the planet Earth, and that'll save everything. They get back, and they go back to the...
There's this stupid scene where we see Elite Girl again, and she's married to, you know, scientist test tube brother man. And she's like, done a complete heel turn where she's like, oh, I don't even remember that pilot. Oh, he was such a fool. Oh, I'm such a hoity-toity bitch now. And it's like, this wasn't part of your character before at all. There was no foreshadowing that, like,
you were just doing it for the lulz.
Right. Whatever.
Anyways,
it's dumb.
They're at the labor camp that we've spent time at, and he's like, you gotta make the workers do the thing, and the guy in charge,
because Earth is really on its last legs
it's
now.
like it's not going well. And the guy's like, dude, it doesn't work, things keep getting destroyed, we can't do shit. Main character shows up and he's like, I'm gonna save everything, I got the vegetables. And brother's like, how dare you not bring the Phoenix with you, because that would have saved everything. And that this exact moment, Earth decides it's had enough and just explodes. I mean, it doesn't literally explode, but like every continent cracks in on itself. The mantle is screwed. Volcanoes,
Earthquakes, tsunamis.
Everyone essentially on Earth dies during this rigmarole as they're trying to escape the planet.
There's also this like betrayal with the elite girl.
Oh yeah, the elite girl is like, it's all fine, old boyfriend, then grabs his gun and throws it to Test Tube Man. So she does like one last evil betrayal, even though she'd never done anything like that. And so she gets to be the one on the ship that falls into the molten lava, as the Test Tube brother just gets blasted in the face by lava and is blinded, and they take him away.
The guy who's actually done all the evil things is spared.
He's spared.
While the rest of humanity and Elite Girl, they all face grim, gruesome deaths.
Mm-hmm. He is taken to a bed in a ruined city somewhere far, far away, and he's able to lay in bed and deliriously like, oh, my brother, let me take it all back. If I do it again, I'll be able to do it correct this time, but not actually learned anything.
Well, but that's the thing, is his whole ending speech is basically how, if he had a chance to do it all over again, he would do the exact same thing.
Change one or two aspects, but still do the exact same plan, which obviously didn't work. It just doomed the entire planet.
Right. So, like, he dies then.
Yeah, he dies,
nothing.
And then Olga and main character fly away as a giant tidal wave takes out that city.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're standing on the beach, presumably the last people on Earth. It's not really clear if they are or not. And main character's like, wow.
This sucks.
And the girl's like, well, this planet will eventually revive itself. If you take the phoenix blood, you'll live forever and you'll be able to see it.
And we'll be able to see it together, because I'll just stay here in this Olga body.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, wait, you're not Olga, you're the Firebird. And he's like, no shit.
Oh shit, dumbass.
And he's like, no, I'll give up I want to see this Earth revived now, and I'm willing to give up my life to do it. And Firebird's like, are you sure? And he's like, yes. And she's like, okay, fine. And so he just keels over dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so she lays
It's kind of dramatic in a nice, like, oh, wow. Like, oh, it hit you. But it's hilarious, because he just goes, ugh.
I don't even think he grunts. He just kind of like goes over to her, puts his hands on her shoulders, and then just falls over.
Yeah, you're like, oh.
Oh, he's just dead now.
Okay.
So she lays his body on the beach, and then she lays down next to him, and then the phoenix leaves the charred husk of Olga's body, showing that it was never fixed to begin with. Again, this is why I'm kind of thinking it was never Olga this whole time. She's been dead the whole time. Hold on.
I disagree.
And then she flies away, and the red hue from the sky goes away, and then we see a few shots of other random people that have also survived looking at the sunrise. And we don't really get any establishment that the Earth is rejuvenating itself or anything. It's just, oh, it's no longer self-destructing anymore.
Yeah.
And then we get one last shot of man and robot laying on the beach dead. And then the man reverts to a baby. And the robot is transformed into a human girl, adult. And she picks up the baby, and we have a video game ending from a very good game, but I won't say the specific one, because if you have...
We don't want to say the spoilers, but I mean, if anybody knows what we're talking about, they'll be like, oh.
That one specific PlayStation 2 game that was really depressing in a good way. It has the same ending, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
And, honestly, they might have gotten that ending from watching this movie.
I mean, probably. There's probably several people who first played that game who were like, oh, this is the Phoenix ending.
Yeah. And so the movie ends with woman holding baby, walking towards the ocean, and the credits roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, I gotta say, there were definitely, themes that the movie was going for that are generally, I would say, considered good themes.
I do want to say, we just spent a lot of time making fun of all this. And the English dub we watched of this really didn't help this movie's case, because the acting was all pretty bad. But,
it's not the worst dubbing I've ever heard. And it feels like it was probably still fairly accurate to the original source material.
Like, it was trying, but it wasn't great. Anyway, though, like, I like the general themes. I like this dystopian society they've set up. It's just the execution and, like, the resolution of a lot of those things that I'm like, eh.
And there's still a lot of the same bad tropes of things like there is a literal object woman.
Yeah.
Like, she is a non-character, and yet she does more in this movie than any other character, full stop.
Right. And she's kind of got, like, that...
taken for granted.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, wow, look, our hero's such a good guy for sticking up for her basic fundamental rights.
Yeah.
Like, not...
but still treats her like trash.
Yeah, compared compared to how you would expect somebody to treat someone they care about, still treats her like garbage. Yeah. And then, like,
there's
the ending of the movie, I think it really could have tied it together if there was just, like, one or two establishing shots of, like, the Earth becoming green again, or, like, some kind of, like, aftermath situation where you can actually see that, like, we've done some good here. But,
instead,
like,
it's just kind of no longer actively being destroyed.
Right. So you're just kind of like, well, okay, so did our main characters just give up their lives for the Earth to just die in a few years again anyway? Like,
yeah, it's difficult to say how that is all gonna play out. The movie also, like, obviously brings up ideas like, oh, this future society where everyone's put on their own tier lists and you're not allowed to associate with other people is obviously bad. But they don't really do a lot past that basic talking point there.
Right. And, like, of course, yes, it's bad. But, like, it'd be nice to see that explored and shown, like, why it's bad and, you know, what that kind of thing can do to people and why, you know, like, there's so much more intrigue from, like, a character study framework that this could have taken. Like, I would have preferred seeing, like, how being raised as a test tube baby and being put along this track affected our main character. But we don't really get to see that.
He's
we get
just
to see
kind
a
of
lot
generic
of...
good guy.
Yeah.
Another thing that they completely gloss over, but, like, is the fact that other species are just kept as slaves or servants.
Yeah.
And they never touch on it. Ever.
No.
And it's just like, that seems like a big thing to talk about, but they don't.
I mean, they kind of bring it up when they have the whole, you know, our hero isn't willing to kill life.
Yeah.
Because they have this scene where they have a bunch of, like, these alien creatures
that look like little muskrats or something.
Yeah, they come in and his commander is like, kill them all. And it's like, no, they're obviously, like...
sentient beings. They're not just wild animals.
I'm not gonna kill them. And the commander is like, no, they're no better than animals. Kill them all. Like, because I command you to.
And then
you've got to have complete obedience. And the pilot's like, no, I refuse. And so then the commander kills them all. Because, like, our pilot doesn't actually step in the way of him killing him. He just refuses to do it himself. So, like, that's the closest you get to a commentary on that kind of thing. But that still doesn't talk about the fact that these other aliens are just, like, slaves to the elite.
Yeah, it's just a thing that the movie does, and
with how long the movie is, there is definitely time that could have been taken to explore some of those aspects, but instead they do, like, these song numbers that don't really go anywhere. There's a lot of just, like, filler content in general. Even though the Phoenix is the whole main part, like what the movie is focused on, the movie spends a lot of time not focusing on it. Like, there's a big chunk of the movie that's just them kind of, like, wandering around in space. And there's a lot of filler stuff in, like, the work camp and the early pilot training.
Yeah, like, I feel like this movie did not need to be 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We could easily cut a half hour out of this and still have the same movie with the same plot.
But it'd just be a
without
bit tighter.
A lot tighter and not with as many distractions that did nothing.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as like the production of this film goes, it's also a real mixed bag. Sometimes the animation's really good. Sometimes it's on par with stuff we saw from other Osamu Tezuka productions.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes it's real bad.
Yeah, sometimes it's terrible. I will also say that generally the lighting and effect animation is getting better from Japan here.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's
some experimental stuff being done, which looks cool.
There's a few scenes in here where they either have a character sweating all over the place, or they're fake crying because they're a robot and can't cry, so they explode water all over their face, so it looks like they're crying.
Uh-huh.
But like it
looks good.
It looks good, and it looks iconic in the sense that this is the style of animation done for these kind of effects in the 80s. And this is like about some of the first times we've seen it on AnimationPilgrimage.
It's revolutionary in that this is going to be the formula that's taken and continued forward.
The specific aesthetic and way that they make it look is something that is used a lot in further animation in the 80s and 90s from Japan. And it's just seeing it, I was like, oh, we got here.
Yeah.
I recognize this style of like liquid on human body.
Right. It's weird to say, but yeah.
It's true though.
No, it is true. So, okay. I think that basically covers our thoughts on the movie.
I would generally say that's my thoughts on the movie. Would I recommend people watch this? I'm probably going to lean on probably not.
No.
Toho has given us 2 full-length movies here at the exact same time. This one and Doraemon. And I feel like, it's weird to say, but I feel like Doraemon is a more cohesive idea of what it's trying to do, even with its very problematic elements.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really recommend either.
It's like, if I had to recommend one of the 2, it'd probably be Doraemon.
But you don't.
But I don't have to. It's true. I don't have to.
You don't have to do that.
I don't have to recommend this because it's not like it's going to be the only multi-hour space opera from this year from Japan. No, we have 4 of those in the year 1980. So we'll have more of those to look forward to. Hopefully one of the other 3 is better.
Well, okay. Now I kind of want to talk about the manga that this was based off of.
Do it. I would love to hear some of what this is based on.
Yeah, so Phoenix, the Osamu Tezuka manga, began in 1954.
That's real early.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you can kind of feel that with some of the designs and aesthetics in this movie.
And it continued until 1988.
It was still going when this came out.
Yes. It's actually not finished.
It was... Oh no, did he die before he was able to finish it?
Yeah, Osamu Tezuka died in 1989. This was his, life work. And the format of this manga was that it was actually about the Phoenix itself. That was the theme of the whole story.
Okay.
And every arc was a different time period, and it was about, and the theme of the time period would be about someone searching for immortality or reincarnation or something like that, and how the power of the Phoenix plays into that. So some of them take place way in the past and deal with Queen Himiko, and some of them take place way in the future so that Osamu Tezuka can explore sci-fi themes and stuff like that.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and apparently this manga was also very experimental in how it presented its story, visually.
So he had fun with how panel
layout
would work and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this movie really isn't an adaptation of any singular
story arc from it.
It's its own arc of Phoenix.
That's neat.
Yeah, I figured you would really appreciate that.
I do like that. I like that it's not just a direct adaptation of the source material. It's taking the idea and doing something new with it.
Mm-hmm.
And because the creator of the original manga was also helping write this, it's like, yeah, this is one that I wanted to tell as well, but let's try a different format. How about animated this time?
Right. Yeah.
You know what? I'll give this movie points for that.
Yeah.
That's
I think
cool.
that's really cool. And honestly, like, this makes me a little bit more interested to check out the original manga. And especially something that, spans such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's really cool.
That's very fascinating.
That he's been working on this, since it has a 30-year plus life. That's awesome.
Wow.
But there's also been different anime adaptations of specific arcs of the manga. There's been OVAs of different
parts
stuff.
of it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's really, really cool. This was directed by Taku Sugiyama, but the screenplay was written by Tezuka. So while he didn't direct this, he was involved in the writing of it. So it's probably pretty true to
how he wanted it to go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then also this series kind of has a quote unquote cinematic universe to it, where sometimes in some of his future panel, or some of the arcs would then end up having background characters of some of his other work.
Okay. So Astro Boy is in there sometimes.
Maybe. I don't know for sure. But some of his other characters would show up as Easter eggs or something in some of his other, just depending on the time period that it would take place.
Cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
Okay.
Anyway, that was really the most interesting thing I could find out about the production of this, because the production of the movie itself didn't have a whole lot of backstory to it. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that'll be it for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So join us back here next time as we watch a third Japanese movie that came out on the exact same day.
Oh my god.
But this one's special because it's a co-production between Japan and the Soviet Union to make a remake of a Soviet Union film.
Mm-hmm.
We are watching 12 Months.
Oh, that's exciting.
Made by Toei and Soyuz Multicam Film.
That is super exciting.
Join us back here next time for that.